you just some of the goodies in the back table. There's some crackers for you salt fiends, and the rest are sugar for the rest of us. There's stuff to drink, so at any time, please get up and have something to eat or drink. It's okay, you don't have to wait till the end. Want to welcome all of you here tonight to Citizens Alliance for Property Rights. We call ourselves CAPR. We focus on issues. We are issue-driven with regard to property rights. We try to avoid politics. It's impossible, but we do make that effort to not try to go there and just talk about the issues themselves and how it affects us individually and as a community when our rights as property owners are trampled on, abused, taken away, you name it. That's what we're here for. We're going to start, as always, with a prayer, and then after the prayer, a flag salute. Caleb Collier, would you please do that for us? Everyone stand, please.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for groups such as these. Thank you for people that are willing to stand and fight when they see a tyrannical action. I ask, Lord, that you fill this room with your spirit, that there be a spirit of Bonhoeffer placed on every individual in this room. In your holy name, amen. Amen. Let's face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Aline Lindstrand. I'm on the CAPR board. Our president, Cindy Zapataki, is out of town, and so I'm running the meeting in her place. We have a couple of gentlemen we need to introduce. Joe Schmidt, Representative Joe Schmidt. Wave your hand there. Ninth District. We have Mike Fagans, Spokane City Council. Woohoo! We're all about candidates tonight here shortly. Anybody else in elected office that I'm missing? Caleb, you're already, that's right, you're an incumbent. Excuse me. Caleb Collier, Spokane Valley City Council. I knew you were running. I just.
And Phil Harris, our ex-commissioner.
Phil! Hi, Phil. How are you? You have. Thank you. Phil has the distinction of honorary, what was that, for this county commissioners? Lifelong emeritus. County Commissioner Emeritus. And, well, you're running for office, and I'm in office. We're going to get to the candidates actually running. I'm just talking about the ones that are elected currently or passed. Okay. So, let me tell you just a little bit about, very briefly, what CAPR does. We do rate candidates. We do not recommend. We do not endorse. There is a difference, and the difference has to do with paperwork. You fill out the paperwork, a questionnaire, and one of the pieces of paper, and a separate one, is a pledge to protect property rights. Sometimes we get the paperwork in, accept the pledge, and we have to rate based on the paperwork and the answers. Answers can be weak, answers can be in full and detail, and the rating is based on how the candidate is answering those questions. I hope that's sort of clear when you go to the website that that's how that is done. Okay. Rated outstanding by CAPR, Shelley Short, Senator, and Jacqueline Maycomber, Representative for the 7th Legislative District, Rod Higgins and Ed Pace of the Spokane Valley City Council, Tim Ben for Spokane City Council, and rated good, Don Kennedy for the Medical Lake City Council. I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm here in place of Cindy, and Cindy knows more than I know. So I'm not sure where your rating is in that thing, where if it's been done. Did anybody get back to you on that?
As I understand it, talking with her, it sounds like the paperwork at the national level that it turned in wasn't turned in here. Or wasn't sent to you guys.
That does happen on occasion when you have a national organization. It's sort of frustrating for those of us that are on the board that are to do the rating. So it's it's not in a timely manner, and all I can do is apologize for not having that done. Okay. Oh, the pledge does pledge to follow the Constitution. That's always a good thing. On this newsletter that you were all sent about our meeting tonight, this is really, really important. So send in your ballots by Tuesday, November 7th. Now, I know I'm talking to the choir. I'm pretty sure that I am. But I was at the election office today observing for an hour and a half. Anybody want to venture a guess how many ballots have been returned so far? Percentage?
15%.
Really? No. Say it louder.
8%.
8%. Okay, let me tell you something from an observer's viewpoint, having done this for 8.5 years now. The biggest frustration is what is most effective to get out the vote and get people to vote. I don't have the answers, but I do know that when we talk to them personally, please, I hope you're talking to your neighbors. We should know our neighbors by now, hopefully unless you just moved, but talk to your neighbors. Talk to people at church. Have you turned in your ballot? Ask them. You know, it's really hard to lie to somebody when they're saying, have you turned in your ballot? You know, your first thought is if you look to the left, they're lying, right? So make sure you ask the question. If you're doorbelling, ask them, have you turned in your ballot? And if they hum and haw, they probably have, oh yeah, I did, I'm sure I did one. Ask them the question. Get them to talk about, if they haven't, why. They've only got a few more days, and guys, you know, we've got great candidates running this year. We've got people who are very interested in our property rights that are going away. We're have some great candidates who are very interested in preserving our law, our rule of law, and following it. So if we don't get out the vote, we can't win. We can't win. Do you want to win? Yeah, we do. Okay, so we have to ask, we have to do what we can do, and if it's on the phone and you're talking on a phone bank, that could work. I don't know. I don't answer those calls personally, but some of people will be. Ask them, have you mailed in your ballot yet? It's not our business to ask them who they voted for. That is a privacy issue. Do keep that in mind. We do want good candidates winning, but we need to get out and vote, and if we do that, we have enough of the conservatives to vote that way to get out the vote and win. We can do it. We got to get off our butts. Not us. We're the choir, right? But everybody else. So, okay. That being said, you all had a chance to look at the Hearst Court decision horror stories on the Shift blog that Cindy put in the newsletter. Okay. There's a few other things on there. Did anybody have any questions or want to bring up anything very quickly? Because we've got Mike Fagan here for a short period of time, yes sir, to talk. So we want to get anybody new tonight. Raise your hand if you're new to CAPR. Oh my goodness.
All right, good job.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I will say this, because this is my nature to do so. You need to be a member. It costs $35 a year. Doesn't break the bank. And the more members you have in an organization, the more clout you have. Because when our fabulous, hard-working lobbyists for CAPR, Property Rights has a lobbyist, guys. She's doing it for what, 2 years now? She makes pittance. And she goes to our legislators throughout the year, but she's there, and she drives like 2 hours in the morning to get to Olympia to go see our legislators all the time. Cindy Aaliyah does a fabulous job. She's constantly complimented because she has such a nice manner. She's perfect for that job. You know, I might be not so nice, but she's fabulous. She's wonderful. We need to keep her. That's what our dues help pay for when she goes and talks to our legislators and say, I'm representing X thousands of people rather than 500 or 1,000, thousands. So the more you do, the better that it is. Okay? So, with all that said, we're going to let Mike, you have to leave. Yes?
Treasurer report?
Treasurer report.
Yeah, take care of your business.
Okay, I didn't know if you had to leave. Yes, sir, please.
Okay, so I'm doing the treasurer report for Shannon. She is, because I'm here, she can't be here. Somebody had to pick up Emily from basketball practice. So the CAPR chapter has $774.83. The CAPR PAC has $1,300. $202.33, and current year-to-date is $1574.55 in the CAPR Legal Fund. So that's the report.
Very cool. Thank you very much for that, Tim. And while we are doing our business, because I was really trying not to have it, you had to leave. Okay. On the back of the agenda are our minutes from the last meeting. Those of you who do pay dues and know that you're a member, please take a full minute to read it. And then I'll need a motion and a second to approve them unless there's some changes, and we need to know about those too. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept these minutes.
Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor of accepting the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are accepted as written. Thank you. On business portion, the next item is Jim Wetland with the Cattlemen's Association. Did I say that right?
No.
No. I'm sorry.
I'm Jim Wetland, President of Spokane County Cattlemen.
Spokane County Cattlemen, thank you. Would you come up here for a second?
Association.
And any announcements, because you got a dinner coming up.
We do.
Yes.
November 18th at the Ramada Inn. I have tickets right here in my pocket. They're $45 a piece. And Cindy has ordered a table for 10. So we need some members here to fill that up for the evening. Prime rib, prawns, and all the trimmings. Live auction, silent auction. A little music you can listen to or dance to. Get you happy hour from about 4 to quarter to 6. Dinner's at 6.
We should get happy.
There you go. So,
Where's it at again?
it's at the Ramada Inn at the airport. And we've been going there for years. The dinner's fantastic. So, come and join us, Steve, before we leave tonight. Get your name on some tickets.
Tell them why we need to support you, because some of these people who is their first night
Well-
doesn't always know the issues behind what you
I
do.
was just reading before I came in that the waters of the U.S. that we've all been fighting for, that we need water for our livestock. And you folks need water for whatever use you want it for. Now Trump has tossed it back to, let's settle this. And so now, when we thought it was pretty well settled, now the Corps of Engineers and EPA are going to rework it again. So it's just always something. The prices, we sold calves on Monday at Stockton and Davenport, and it was so-so. But we'll never see the prices that we saw 2 or 3 years ago, because it just won't happen anymore. But everything is pretty well on a roll. Most of the people have either turned their cattle out for fall grazing, or they're starting to feed. The calves are weaned and gone. And
Or they purchased it and put it in their freezer.
I have some grass-fed ground beef for sale. We're butchering, I think, 4th of December. So it's $4.50 a pound, I think, she wants for it. So let me know. We've got a Facebook, Spokane Cattlemen. We've got a website, Spokane County Cattlemen. One way or the other, we'll get you to both of them. We try to keep it updated, but I've got a card if anybody wants to keep in touch with me. Why? Feel glad to talk to you. And I'd be glad to come and talk to any of your other organizations about what's going on in the cattle industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Representative Schmidt, would you like a couple of minutes to update us on anything? And I think the Yakima thing was, talking.
Well, I can, Yakima County Commissioners, to fix their water issues. They are decided that you will pay a fee of about $1,100. They will meter, okay. They will meter those gallons, and if you go over, I believe it's 480 gallons, you will pay per gallon. County is making the assumption that all the water is connected, and they know that's not the case, but they're making that leap.
Is that per day or per what?
No, yes, that would
Per
be,
day.
yes. They decided that they did that because they don't want to be sued, but I can guarantee they will be taken to court. This is what ecology wants. This is the model. This is what they want across the state.
Pick a target and win.
Excuse me?
Pick a target and win.
Well, and that's this, so they decided to do that. That's what they've done. And I'm sure that we'll be going to court because basically they're superseding the exempt water well law, which says 5,000 gallons a day. I will remind you again, exempt wells are less than 1% of the state's water usage. So,
You see in Whatcom County, they just fined the raspberry farmer $80,000.
Whatcom County is the poster child
That's
for
right.
this.
That's where it all started.
Now, if that's not bad enough, I always want to remind you, the Foster decision is worse. Foster decision it affects in-stream flows. So if you have water that affects any in-stream flow, they could actually shut cities down. And so that one's coming. I personally think that one's even worse than first. And so that would be the next water issue. You control the water, you control the growth. And that's just kind of an update.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Joe. We have gone through, is there any announcement that somebody has that's really pressing before we get to Mike Fagan? And then we're going to interview the candidates, and then Phil Harris will have an announcement that he wants to make after that. Anything else at this point?
Let's hear Mike.
Let's hear Mike. Come on, Mike.
Well, in case you folks haven't already guessed, Cindy wanted this particular meeting here recorded for posterity, and after we get done recording this thing, we're going to make it available to our Spokane candidates for their Facebooks, their web pages, and things to that effect. So, to augment what Representative Schmidt was saying with regard to this fight that we got ongoing with water, right here in Spokane County, and this has been affirmed by the City of Spokane's utility director, mind you, something that I had already known and known for a long time. Our Spokane-Rathdrum Prairie aquifer exists in 350 square miles of underground caverns. The water that exists in those underground caverns amounts to trillions, plural, of gallons. Any given day of the week, as a county, we would pump a little over 1 billion gallons of that aquifer water out for our use. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, 93% of that water goes right back down into the aquifer. Okay? 7% is what we can say is human consumption in the county of Spokane, of our Spokane-Rathdrum Prairie aquifer. 7%. That's washing your hands, using the toilet, washing the dishes, washing your clothes, and the agriculture that we support in this county. Okay? So the next time that you hear somebody saying that we are running out of water in Spokane County, you may want to throw that information at them. And again, this has been affirmed by the City of Spokane's Utilities Director. Okay? The reason why I bring that up is because what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of months in the media, whether it's hyped or not, there is a major controversy right now. As you well know, Fairchild is going through their water quality issues. They are on a separate aquifer than Spokane is on. Same thing with Medical Lake and Airway Heights. And as a result, the City of Spokane is entering into an intertie agreement with Airway Heights and Medical Lake. This has been an ongoing discussion for the last several months, and here until the last couple of weeks, the rhetoric has just been increased tenfold, because everybody thinks we're pumping water out of the Spokane River, and we're now diminishing and depleting the water in the river, and that is not the case. Okay? So just bear that in mind when you start reading headlines and media coverage with regard to water issues here in Spokane County. I wanted to reinforce the idea that elections as well as political appointments have consequences. They really do. Just take a look at my environment and my condition currently. I'm severely outgunned. We've got 7 members on the council, 6 of which are on the left side of the aisle. And they got there strategically. So don't think for a minute that my colleagues are not smart, cunning, and crafty, because they attained a supermajority which allows them to raise taxes at their whim, and as well, they can return a vetoed ordinance by the mayor. Okay? They can veto. That's with 5 members. Now, there are only 2 cities in the state of Washington right now that have a supermajority requirement, and that was one of the things that I took part in, along with Nancy McLaughlin, Steve Salvatore, and Mike Allen, before the appointments and subsequent elections, which basically turned the tables in the city of Spokane towards the left side of the aisle and gave them a 6-member voting bloc. Okay? That particular measure was in the spirit of what I do secondarily as one of the principles of Voters Want More Choices. We have sent multiple citizens initiatives to Olympia that were qualified for the ballot in order to attain a 2/3 supermajority requirement on the legislature in order to raise our taxes. We firmly believe that tax increases should always be the last resort. So we went ahead and made that move in the city of Spokane. Voters approved of it. The only other city that I'm aware of in Washington state that does have that supermajority requirement to raise taxes is the city of Yakima. So, now that being said, how Council President Stuckard attained his supermajority and veto-proof majority is through appointments. In the Northwest, when Steve Salvatore stepped down in order to pursue his business interests, Karen Stratton was appointed. Then John Snyder got tapped by the governor, and we ended up replacing him through an appointment with Brian Beggs. Okay? And everybody understands who those individuals are. So I just want to give everybody a little bit of background as to how we are in the predicament that we are in the city of Spokane. So I cannot stress enough that we have got to be out there, again, speaking to the choir, the usual suspects. We know, we've been there, we've done that, but it is incumbent on each and every one of us in this room. We've got to be tapping on our friends, our family members, co-workers, congregation members. We've got to encourage them, twist their arm if you have to get them to vote. Okay? It is that important. And if we don't see results in the city of Spokane, I'm telling you, I got a paper here that's nothing but a bunch of whoop butt on some tax measures that my colleagues want to bring forward because they don't want to do their due diligence to see if there are alternatives to taxation. Taxation is the easiest of it all. Okay? And they would much rather just tax, get it done, and move on to the next one. Okay? So the information that I want to share with you folks tonight is information that I've basically accumulated through meetings and whatnot over the last several years of the direction that it appears the city of Spokane is going. Now what I've got in my hand pertains to the city and is not all-inclusive of the taxing districts and jurisdictions that could also increase your taxes if you're a resident in the city of Spokane. For instance, School District 81. We know because we were in a presentation from the school district, that they are out there beating the bushes to site upwards of 6 new schools in the city of Spokane. There will be a school bond measure for capital improvements coming down the pike. My guesstimation is going to be at least 2, maybe 3 years out because of all of the other tax asks that we have got that aren't getting in line right now. One of the other entities that could very well be putting a tax measure on the ballot would be the Public Facilities District. This is the taxing authority that operates the arena, the convention center, and the I&B Performing Arts Center. And these people would like to see a sports complex to the tune of roughly 42 to 45 million on the north bank of the Spokane River, okay, to augment Riverfront Park and be close to the arena parking and things like that. So just a couple of things to keep in the back of the memory banks, okay?
Question, real quick.
Yes?
How much grant money are you going to get if they wanted to tax? Because it's not just taxes, it would pay for all when they have some grant money for that? Or?
There may very well be grant money that comes after the fact. Normally, the modus operandi of government is you secure the tax revenue first, then you can show the state or the feds, I've got the tax revenue backing me up. What kind of matches can you grant me? Okay, so the grants will come after the fact. Yes, sir.
When you say taxes possibly raised for Spokane, is that any resident or being that has a Spokane address, whether they live in Spokane proper or not?
If you are a property owner, a resident of the city of Spokane, and you've got a city of Spokane address, then you're subject to the taxation.
It has to be within the city limits.
Within the city limits, yes, sir. You bet. All right, as you folks well know, the city of Seattle, a very, very close friend of the city of Spokane's, at least in the minds of my colleagues, just got done passing a gun and ammo tax, which was challenged in court. And the city of Seattle beat it. It's a good tax. Now granted, they haven't raised as much revenue as they anticipated when they passed that law and enacted that tax, but nonetheless, it was passed, it was challenged, it withstood the challenge, and now my colleagues are talking about a gun and ammo tax in the city of Spokane.
Then we'll go to some
Okay.
other city to buy it.
Councilmember Brian Beggs, a month ago, at one of our community centers, held a workshop in order to get a group of community interests together to craft ballot language for what they are calling the sidewalk property tax levy lid lift. And what this is going to do is raise somewhere between 125 almost up to $500 million in revenue so that we can have new sidewalks in the city of Spokane. Okay?
We need new roads first.
Yeah, no kidding. Priorities, right? Those darn priorities getting in the way. The next one that we as a council acknowledged through a vote on a letter, because even though I might be only one guy and I'm standing in the back of the room, looks like I'm doing jumping jacks, I'm actually trying to get people's attention going, hey, look at me, I got the goods. I'm going to tell you what the real scoop is. What I'm talking about is the sugar and the soda tax. We started those discussions in January. Originally, Brian Beggs engaged in those discussions out in public, and those discussions had it that the revenue was going to be directed towards child care issues, directed towards daycare facilities. Why? It was because of the state citizens initiative that passed and went into effect the beginning of the year, raising the minimum wage and putting into place paid sick leave. If you guys recall, the beginning of the year when that happened, the media was out there, and who got featured in the media reports? It was the daycares. Why? It's because common parents that don't have the opportunity to pay utilizing state funds through DSHS and have to pay the full ride, we're going to end up seeing a couple of $100 a month increase on their child care bills. Okay? So that discussion went on for about a month, and then the discussion slowly refocused itself on public safety. The lack of police officers, the lack of firemen, et cetera, and so forth. At the end of the day, I was able to rally the beverage industry, as well as, get this, the Teamsters Union, the truckers, together, and we put enough pressure on my colleagues, so they ended up initiating a letter saying that we would cease and desist discussions on the soda and the sugar tax until further notice. This was a public document that got brought before the council, and we voted on it. Okay? Until further notice. That's political speak for, let's see what happens after the election. Okay? Here's a couple of others. I already mentioned the $42 million North Bank Sports Complex. Okay? Over the last quarter, we have been approached by the likes of the Arts Commission and the Symphony, because they would like the City Council to entertain the thought of what they call an opportunity levy in order to support the Symphony and the arts in the City of Spokane. So, not a whole lot of traction behind the opportunity levy, but, you know, I'm sure that the other electeds that are in the room would agree with me that, you know, as individuals, we get lobbied, and we get lobbied heavy. We really do. And if the right special interests are lobbying the right council members, they're not going to say no. And they're going to move forward with something. On top of all of that, your Spokane library system is now talking about capital facility needs. We're talking about doubling the size of the Shada Library. We're talking about growing the Hilliard Library a little bit more. We want to shut down the library that exists on the South Hill, and we want to build a new library, very possibly right next door to the Southside Senior Center, there on the South Hill. Brand new facility. It's going to be at least 2, maybe 3 stories high. And then we obviously have some capital facility needs at the main library downtown. We're talking about a $92 million ballot measure. At least $92 million bucks. Okay? Now, a year ago, the City of Spokane, before Chief Williams ended up retiring and got replaced by Chief Schaefer, we ended up submitting a grant to FEMA. They were offering upwards of $9 million bucks for 2 years that would allow the City of Spokane to hire 50 new firefighters / EMTs and other EMS type personnel. The City of Spokane knew from the get that this was a 2-year temporary program, temporary employment, and we were doing it for the express purpose of seeing how having 50 new firefighters is going to impact our city's fire insurance rating. Okay? People understand the fire insurance rating? Okay? In the City of Spokane, we are rated a number 3. In the City of Spokane Valley, they are number 2. And there's a lot of different criteria that goes into the fire rating system. So we moved forward with the understanding that we want additional personnel to see at the end of the 2 years whether or not those hires could very well impact our fire rating. Now, believe it or not, fire rating will hit you in your own pocketbook too, because whoever does your homeowner insurance, they base some of that premium on the fire and EMS coverage that you've got in your local community. And I don't know how high the numbers go as far as fire rating's concerned, but if you were rated at a 1 and a 2, then you were right there in the top.
They go up to 9.
Okay?
They go up to
Okay.
9. So the rural districts out, Airway, High Speed Creek, that's a 9.
Okay. All right. I was just looking at a requisition for the purchase of 3 brand-new pumper trucks. So believe it or not, guys, we have been using our equipment in the fire department such that we do have several fire engines that have got well over 250,000 miles on them. They are over 20, 25 years old, and we need new equipment. $2.1 million bucks for 3 pumper trucks. Okay? The city of Spokane, and I'm sure a lot of you probably heard me say this, either on the radio show or wherever, when it comes to building stuff, the city of Spokane can build it pretty good. I mean, unless we're talking about the streets. But when it comes to maintaining what we've built, that's where we fall down. As a matter of fact, we just reached out to the federal government and got awarded a $5 million grant for pavement preservation, because we don't sock money away for maintenance and things to that effect, to the extent that we need to, okay? Transportation Benefit District, everybody understand what that is? That is the extra $20 tab fee that the city of Spokane adds to your license tab vehicle registration every year, okay? State law has it that we could, through the course of several years, actually raise that transportation benefit district to a total of $50 without a public vote. So anything between $50 and $100, got to have a public vote. So we are at $20 right now in a transportation benefit district fee. We are actively discussing doubling that to $40. Now, we would have probably thought about going to the $50 and just capping it out, but the way the state law is, we can go to $40. We have to keep that static for 2 years, then we can go after you for the extra $10. Okay? As policy would have it, the city council is also the Transportation Benefit District Board. Okay? So what you're going to be hearing about and seeing in the newspapers over the next couple of weeks is how your city council in Spokane is going to move out to eliminate the Transportation Benefit District Board or consolidate it into the city council. An efficiency move, I could see that. Why have 2 separate boards? Those that have been watching the city council in Spokane, when you see us deliberating TBD, what we normally have to do is we start out, convene the meeting, we're at the city council. Then we have to adjourn the meeting and reconvene the meeting as the TBD. Then once we do our TBD stuff, we have to adjourn that meeting, then reconvene the meeting as the city council and vote on the same thing we just got done voting on. So I can see the efficiency here. What I'm afraid of, though, is now that we are moving forward with the discussions on changing the TBD, that means the doubling of the license plate fees is imminent, and it's around the corner. And then 2 years later, you can expect another $10 jump on your license tab fees. Now, what's been the big news around the state here lately? Well, let me tell you. And I sure would have been I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in Senator Mike Padden's hearings. Bottom line, folks, Sound Transit really screwed the voters. They really did. They somebody monkeyed with the numbers. Huh? And they did. They fabricated the numbers. They lied to the legislature. They ended up having the vote. And people are not getting what they voted for and what they expected. They're being charged tons and tons of money from various revenue sources there. So that's a little something for you guys to bear in mind and expect.
I feel bad about that, Mike, 'cause voters were given inaccurate information. You know that they basically cooked the books for how they proposed it. You know that they got that money based really on false statements, and there's nothing that can be done about it to reverse it.
I know.
No jail
That's
time?
what's sad.
I know. It's absolutely frustrating.
Taxpayers have just had it.
I mean,
Just don't drive through that tunnel.
yeah, I would think that you might be able to go after some of the principals that may have made it so, but, you know, again, as I've been known to say in public, it would normally take somebody that's got the wherewithal and the legal expertise to engage in something like that, and I sure am not that guy, so
It's just sad.
that's the way it goes. All right. Anyway, getting back to the firefighters in this FEMA grant, we're talking $9 million for 2 years that is going to fund our 50 firefighters. Well, we are in the process of hiring them now, and we are only going to go for 48. And there's going to be more EMS people than there are firefighters, because 85% of the calls that we have in Spokane are EMS calls. Okay? So,
Do they
yes,
know
sir.
that they're-
Just, has anybody, I'm sure the study's been done, I just really want to hear it so I can go, okay. Is it really save money to take those pump trucks out on an EMS call instead of just like an ambulance size or?
No. No, it doesn't save us any money. It provides additional wear and tear on the equipment. Couple that with the fact that when those fire trucks are driving in some of our residential streets, I have come to know the fire department has gotten a few accidents in the past. Same thing with our snow plows.
And why do they do it?
It gives the union the opportunity to increase their numbers by coming negotiating, right?
Right. Well, they do it because at the end of the day, their standard response time for calls is 8 minutes, 30 seconds. So if you're having a heart attack, you can't breathe, our standard response time in the city of Spokane for an ALS call, advanced life-saving, is 8 minutes, 30 seconds. And what we've done is we've strategically located our AMR ambulance contractor in various spots around the north and the south side of town, so that when an ambulance or a EMS call does come in, one or the other is going to end up getting there first. Okay? And it's just a little bit of double coverage, but like I said, with a standard ALS response time of 8 minutes and 30 seconds, you guys try holding your breath for that long and, you know, let me know how you fare. So we strongly discourage large apparatus being dispatched to these types of fires. And this is the reason why...
The city council strongly discourages or?
Oh, yes, yes, as well as the mayor. And this is the reason why we came up with alternative response units, which are our red pickup trucks that are staffed with 2 EMS people, so that they can go ahead and respond to those kinds of calls. Now, you're still going to see large apparatus from time to time that does get dispatched to these kinds of calls. It's just the nature of the beast, because we do not have ARU units yet in all of our fire stations. But we're getting there, and we're going to get there through the FEMA grant. Yes, ma'am.
So do these 48 people know that they're basically hired on a temporary basis for 2 years?
I have been assured that that is the case. I can't speak on behalf of my colleagues, because at the end of the day, my colleagues love government. They want to grow government, okay? Because government is our savior, and government can do anything. Government has got all the money in the world,
Our money.
okay? And that's the difference between us and them, really, at the end of the day. It's like I said, these guys are not dummies. These are crafty, cunning people, very smart. So I've got the utmost respect for Council President Stuckert in the way he built and maintained his super-duper majority, the voting bloc. And he is able to ram anything through the system that he would like, with or without the mayor's signature. And believe it or not, since he has attained that, there have been several very high-profile ordinances that the mayor has refused to sign. Okay? So, we've got this thing called an FBC, Fire Benefit Charge. Write it down, Google it. This is another tax revenue stream. It has not been used in a municipal setting as of yet. It's normally utilized in a rural setting for fire districts and things like this, but it would be an add-on and tacked onto your property taxes, and it's called a fire benefit charge. This is a mechanism that my colleagues are currently talking about in order to retain the 48 additional fire professionals that we are out getting, hiring, training, and bringing up to speed right now.
That would require a vote.
Pardon?
That would require a vote.
That would require a councilmanic vote.
Council what?
Councilmanic vote, which means it's right here on the dais.
Oh,
Okay?
oh, not the people.
Nope.
Vote.
Nope. I'll tell you something right now, guys. We will absolutely, in the current configuration that we've got, do everything councilmanically as opposed to putting it out to the voters for the ballot. That's just the nature of the beast, guys. Yes, sir.
Clarkston just went through that. They got a grant, they hired more firefighters, and when the grant was up, oh, you should have heard the union down there, and they ended up caving, the city council caving, and they have to raise taxes down to pay for those extra firefighters.
You bet.
Same thing that's gonna happen.
Yep, you bet. Okay, so there you go, fire benefit charge. The beginning of this year, yes, sir.
And that $9 million grant, what percentage did you guys set up for personnel and for equipment?
That was just for the personnel. Okay, so now we have to spend a little bit of extra money, and this was an expectation. One of the hooks that's in the grant dollars only cover the personnel. It doesn't cover the additional equipment, so we're out the money that it's going to take in order to get the helmets, the PPE gear,
Trucks?
yes, stuff like that. So that is the city's contribution to this. Yes, sir.
Okay, so with the firefighters, the other thing is that they have not hired all 48 yet. They're
No.
still in the process.
Right.
So they're put forward a grant to continue that into the third year because they haven't spent all the monies, right?
The way the grant is structured, we are going to be allowed to hire up to the 48 once we get that, and then, of course, dependent upon the timeline of the hiring, those people will be terming out, so to speak, after their 2-year stint.
Right.
Okay?
So attrition.
Yes, attrition. I'm glad that you brought that up, because attrition, folks, in case you don't understand that in government, would be those positions that have not been filled but are currently budgeted for. And attrition could also mean those that term out because of disabilities, because of retirements, because of injury, and things like that. So at the end of the day, of the 48 personnel that we are in the process of hiring, training, and putting out on the street, there is a good likelihood that through attrition 2 years from now, we may end up retaining 20 to 25 of those fire professionals anyway because of attrition, okay? But you still have the other 25 that we're going to want to retain, and we're going to end up having to pay for, okay? All right, there had been some talk earlier this year with regard to the passing of Title 18 Human Rights Ordinance. And one of the big things and takeaways from that Human Rights Ordinance, we have now extended protected class to those individuals who have Section 8 housing vouchers. Okay? We can no longer, landlords can no longer, management companies can no longer discriminate against individuals with housing vouchers. And we are going to be funding the Human Rights Commission in the city of Spokane to the tune of $150,000 so that they can engage in investigating and adjudicating cases against landlords in the city. Okay? We are talking about requiring landlords to have business licenses now. And we want them to have business licenses so that we can engage in a rental registry and periodic inspections of your rental units. okay? All of which you're going to have to pay for, okay? It's about $110 for a business license in the city of Spokane. We have been talking $200, $300 for the rental registry. And then we haven't quite settled on whether or not we want to hire more personnel for the city to engage as inspectors, or do we want to contract that work out? Either way you go, you're going to end up paying for it as a landlord at the end of the day. You probably have heard in the recent edition of the Inlander, the county commissioners just passed an ordinance which now bans the box. Everybody understand that one? Okay, you know the little box on your employment application, your housing application, your gun permit application, any application that you fill out always asks you that little question, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Well, there's been that talk going on in the city of Spokane for the last 3 years. Now that the county commissioners have engaged in that, the city of Spokane will fall as part of the domino system. And we will no longer, or we will ban the box, okay? Now, by banning the box, that doesn't preclude an employer or a landlord or a management company or anybody from conducting their financial, criminal backgrounds and the whole bit. Because I have not heard any discussion up to this point from my colleagues with regard to banning that also. But what that does is that puts more of a financial burden on that employer or landlord or management company rep to really engage, because you don't know at the end of the day what you're going to end up getting. So it behooves you to spend that money, and it would be in your best interest to spend that money, and the government's just going to basically say, ha ha, you know. Yes, ma'am?
Could you please explain why the county commissioners would have done that? I'm confused.
I do not know. I have not read the article. I have not seen any of the deliberation statements or anything to that effect. Okay?
They have, in listening to both sides of it, Gloria, they do have a pretty good argument as to, there's so many applications these days being filled out electronically. As soon as that box is checked, that application is basically put aside. That person never gets a chance to be interviewed, to anything that way. So it really is more along the lines of, they may be extremely well qualified, except for this one check mark, and often those check marks have expirations behind them. So that's...
And, you know, the argument for banning the box, obviously, if somebody has done their time, they have paid their debt to society. And not everybody that has done their time would be suitable to get back and re-engage in society in a good way. We know that because the statistics show us that.
On their employment app, they would have a space where they
Yes.
weren't around. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I can definitely see both sides of the issue on that. Again, it's a culture change that we are all, you know, going to end up being subjected to. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the ban the box, the city of Spokane already did that, but it was only for city employment. My understanding is the county, it was also only for county employment because there is jobs where people with a criminal past could work under the city and county in some positions.
Right.
But they want to expand it to the private sector and to landlords, which means if you can't have a felon working at, say, your child care, like we have.
Sure.
It means that you have to spend the money to do background checks on people.
Right.
To find out that they've got something in their background that they shouldn't even apply for the job. So even though they have a good argument for it, there's kind of an argument against it, because if that goes into effect, and there's a lot of that in most fields, there'll probably be an application fee so that the companies don't have to pay those processing fees for employees that
Yeah,
shouldn't have applied.
you betcha. You
and
bet.
we're all assuming that people are honest and will check the box.
You bet. And unfortunately, I've capitalized a little bit more time than I really wanted to, but let me just go ahead and finish up here real quick. Bike share program.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys heard what happened to the bike share program over in Seattle, didn't you? Okay. Well, we're going to have a bike share program in the city of Spokane. Where do you think those bikes are going to go?
In the river.
In the river. Very good, John. All right.
Now we gotta clean the river.
Yeah. And get this, guys. Earlier this year, we had a real serious series of votes with regard to extending water service to people that were 40 feet outside the city limits. Right, Cecily?
That's right.
Only one of those 8 applications ended up getting approved. Okay?
Personal friends, what?
So water's going to be really, really big here over the next couple of months, through the next couple of years for sure. So just get ready for that. And the reason why I bring that up is because I've been pounding the desk and doing my jumping jacks in the background for Hearst. We need to fix the Hearst decision. I mean, it is mind-blowing how many billions of dollars in impact to our rural communities and the state coffers this is going to have. Yet, my colleagues are hell-bent on pushing to pass the capital budget. Absolutely amazing. I understand it's important too. But look, yes, sir.
We will not pass the bonds. We passed the capital budget out of the House, but it takes a 60% vote for the bonds, and we will not pass that without a Hearst bill.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, and how important it is why over $2.4 million is going into the Senate race in the 45th.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
That's incredible, the amount of money that's going into that.
It is. It is. And you know, the 45th is extremely important because, I mean, that is going to tail the tale on whether or not we see an income tax and a whole bunch of other ugliness.
If the Democrats win, there goes the majority.
There you go. So to kind of close up on what I got to throw at you here, just from the homeless standpoint, we're talking about creating a special fund that will provide hotel and motel vouchers to homeless individuals that are encountered by the Spokane Police Department in the event that our shelters are full. We're talking about funding storage units for our homeless so that they've got some place to put their goods and their stuff.
Can they stay there too?
And the last thing with regard to, well, actually there's a couple more with regard to homeless. We want to fund, or at least push to fund 1,000 more Section 8 housing vouchers
Only 1,000.
in the city. We don't have the capacity for that. And then the last two that I wanted to throw out to you, we're getting a lot of pressure to repeal the sit and lie ordinance that pertains to downtown. And as well, we're getting a lot of pressure to repeal the panhandling policy that the city of Spokane has. So, with that, are there any questions?
So sit and lie is
Not moving.
Yeah, sit and lie is blocking the sidewalk, things to that effect. The reason why it came about is because when we initially came into office, one of the big problems we had with downtown, with the downtown element, the businesses and others, is that we had these little groups of teenagers and young adults that were very disrespectful, that were laying all over the sidewalk, laying all over the furniture, you know, the flower pots and things to that effect. They would harass people walking by, spit on people walking by, things like that. And that was the reason why we put the sit and lie ordinance in place. The first year it was in place, we probably issued 100 tickets, and it has basically gone down ever since. And you know, year to date, 2017, we probably had occasion to issue maybe 6. So it is working. Should it go away? I don't think so. Let's just keep driving those numbers down. Let's see a couple of years with zeros, and then we'll talk about it. Okay?
So who paid for the tickets?
The ticket, those folks that end up getting those tickets on the sit and lie actually go to community court, which we hold at the main Spokane Library, and they pay their fine by way of providing labor, cleaning up graffiti, picking up the garbage, And those are the things that community court can immediately do to dispense that justice and adjudicate the case. Okay? But again, not everybody is suited. The vast majority are, but not everybody is suited. And those people that are not suitable for that, they end up going to the county jail. Now, last thing that I want to tell you guys about our criminal justice system here. As you well know, for the longest time, our county jail has held double what it was actually built for. Built for 465. On average, we're talking 850, 950, 1,000 prisoners at any given time through the year. And the city of Spokane pays about $130 a day for our prisoners. The city of Spokane's prisoner count right now accounts for only 11% of the prisoners that are currently in the county jail. So I just thought I'd make mention of that. Okay. Thank you, Aline.
Thank you, Mike. Do you not have appreciation for one against six?
It's a microphone.
This is a microphone?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Am I not talking loud enough? Thank you so much.
No, you are, but it's for the next speaker.
Oh, there you go. Okay. We now have candidates that have 5 minutes with 2 minutes for questions. I will be doing this 30 seconds before the 5 minutes are up. We're going to run a few minutes longer unless you want to cut it down to 4.5 minutes and still have time for answering a few questions. So I think I'm going to give the honor of the first one to our mayor of the Spokane Valley City, Rod Higgins.
All right.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
In front of the screen line.
This is like a lineup. Well, I'm depressed. I'm depressed that I drove all the way out here to hear that. I knew a lot of it because I was sitting there when Stuckert and Beggs made the pitch about ban the box, and I couldn't help but think, they're saying, well, all we have to do is ban the box, and then we can let those people into the system and stuff. And oh, and by the way, you can't actually do the background check until you are ready to make them an offer. Well, you've got to understand, when you're dealing with those two folks and the others with him, you're about that far from you can't not make an offer regardless of their record. You see where this is going? You can't trust them, is what I'm saying. Now, when we get back, this has nothing to do with the races in the valley, by the way, and why I'm running for office, but let's talk for a second about the races in the office, in the valley, and talk about an individual who has chosen to insert themselves into our political process in the valley, and that's our sheriff. Now, why he's doing what he's doing, I haven't the foggiest. He's got a war going on with Matt Shea, and he thinks we're all Matt Shea's acolytes, and therefore he's going to punish us, or something to that effect. Now, what's troublesome about this is that there is a group of folks that believe that the sheriff really deserves the R behind his name. But I think his endorsement of all of the folks in this race would say otherwise. In fact, I think he's come out of the closet, literally. Okay? Enough said there. When this hits the wire, I'll probably have a shooter on my front porch. Anyway, it's an interesting race. Ray says it's an odd year since we have 5. That makes a very awkward situation for all the things you do in campaigns, such as raising money and putting out signs and waving signs and, knocking on doors and stuff like that. Howsoever, we will persevere. But as Aileen said in the beginning, you gotta vote. Not just, us, but you also gotta urge everyone else to do the same. you're up. Yes.
Why is this Spokane GOP endorsing Ben Wick?
Can you repeat it?
I know.
Can you repeat it?
Why is,
Why did the county party, the GOP, endorse Ben Wick? Well, that's a good question. I said earlier there was a group here that called themselves Republicans that I have to question that. Republican is in their name. What happens is they have inserted themselves, or insinuated themselves maybe, into every other organization, and as a result, you get discussions or debates or actual takeovers of things. This, by the way, the county party isn't the only place that's had discussions like that and came up the same way. And I would lay that directly in their lap. When we talk about people who have an R behind their name supposedly and really don't, you're looking at that, okay? So, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Put to bed finally this 6% tax thing that came out, that you guys were for a 6% utility tax increase. Could you put that to bed for us?
Yes. We saw the need to maintain our roads, road preservation. A few years back, we set a telephone tax as being the bedrock for that, the foundation for it. Well, from the day that it was installed, it started going down. And I think you know why, because landlines are going out. Yes, we also tax cell phones, but people are texting more, and we don't tax that. At any rate, that's going down, and there appears to be no end in sight. I suppose there is someplace, but where it's at, I don't know. So, we were looking at the entirety of our road preservation system, and we were getting from our Public Works Department some numbers that were just bad, that we didn't know were bad. We took them at their word. Well, later on, we made a few changes in the valley. And as an outflow from those changes, we made some changes in our Public Works Department. And in those changes, we discovered a whole bunch of things that we really didn't want to know but should have, you know. We should have been told. Things like the $36.4 million price tag on our Barker Road rail crossing, that you know, there were other bids out there from years before that we, the council, did not know about. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? So, and we can't talk about it. Suffice it to say that it looked like we needed a 6% utility tax to cover those numbers. Well, we don't, okay? And we backed away from that, and we won't take it up again until the new Public Works Department, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way. It's all been joined with business development and stuff like that. When those numbers come back, then we can sit down and intelligently discuss this, okay? So we'll take it up then, but it won't be until next year sometime. I just got the signal. Is he up?
Yes, Kayla, would you come up and we'll save Tim for the City of Spokane last? And there's just three of you tonight. Okay. There you go, Caleb.
Okay. I'll just hold it. That's all right. Like I said, I'm Caleb Collier, Spokane Valley Council member, and my gosh, Spokane is messed up, isn't it? You know, one of my slogans has always been Spokane Valley is the answer to Spokane's politics, and boy, did he just prove it. So we're doing some really cool things. You know, we're called the capital of free Washington, Spokane Valley. Perhaps one day the capital of liberty. You never know. Thank you. But we're the city that is basically doing the exact opposite of what Spokane is doing. So we're for lower taxes, we're for more freedom, we're for property rights. So let's talk about some of the things that we're doing for property rights in Spokane Valley. We're currently looking at a number of issues that really benefit the property owner, because government is not supposed to get in the way of property owners, right? You know, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, it's rolled in that. Some of the things we're looking at is an animal rights ordinance. And so what we're looking at is, shouldn't the Spokane Valley residents be allowed to raise farm animals if they want to on the property that they own? Shouldn't they be allowed to have gardens and sell that produce if they want to? Shouldn't they be allowed to maintain and keep bees, process that honey and sell it off their property if they want to? Why not? This is things that benefit our citizens, it benefits our community. Another thing we're looking at is the shipping containers. We've had some people that have brought up the idea of maybe using these shipping containers for storage sheds, something like that. Well, if somebody wants to use a shipping container versus buying one from Ziggy's or something, why shouldn't they be allowed to do so? Once again, why does the government need to get involved and tell property owners what they can and cannot do? Those are just two examples of some of the things we're doing for Spokane Valley. And we're really taking that idea, that concept, less government, more freedom. And it's something that I truly believe in as a council member. I truly believe in our founding documents, our Bill of Rights, our Constitution. And I'm always cognizant of it as I have somebody trying to get in. Anyway, I'm always cognizant of it as I'm on the dais. If something is going to violate your individual rights, then I'm not going to vote for it. Another issue that we are currently seeing, and we're getting a lot of flack over, is this idea of a parental rights ordinance. So there are some of us on the council who really believe that parents, not the state, have the right to raise their children as they see fit. And this has many different applications. So for some of it, it goes with education. So if a parent doesn't want their children to be taught by Planned Parenthood sex education in the schools, then they absolutely have that right. The parent can say, no, we're going to teach them, because I know I had the birds and the bees conversation with my dad. It was awkward. I didn't want to look at him, but that's how I learned about it. And a parent has that right. One of the other things, in our schools currently, if a student needs an aspirin, the nurse has to call the parent in order to give them that aspirin. But yet, if they want an abortion, they can be brought into Planned Parenthood and the parent never even knows. And this isn't some easy procedure. This has risks. You can die from getting an abortion. So absolutely, a parent has that right. So there's some of the things that we're exploring for Spokane Valley, really making the model for a government that largely gets out of the way for the people. So with that, I'll close and I'll answer any questions.
Question?
Yes.
How do you find, as a city council member, the balance between one's personal property rights and a neighbor's personal property rights when there are fences between the two of them and they disagree?
So your rights end where my rights begin, right?
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah. So no, we definitely need to be aware of that, and you cannot violate somebody else's rights with your own rights. But there's also always a hierarchy too. We have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. There's a hierarchy to those, and so I can't infringe on your rights to liberty in my pursuit of happiness, right? And so for me, that's how I would always vote. As long as it's not as long as I'm not infringing on your rights or to that higher degree, then I'm going to vote for it.
What's your name again?
Caleb Collier.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Caleb.
Absolutely.
Tim Ben, you're up.
Got to add a little bit of to Mike's list, because I think he left out just cause evictions for landlords, relocation fees. So landlord has to pay the last month in deposit at the next place that the person's going to live in if they end their contract. Just cause eviction stops month-to-month setups for landlords, and basically you end up having to get a judge to say, oh yeah, no, this is a bad contract, you can go ahead and evict them. So yeah, there's a lot of little dirty things the city is doing that will, of course, chase investment off out of the city of Spokane. Most of you here know me. My name is Tim Ben, running for city council. My wife and I have run a child care. I've gotten legislation passed at the legislature dealing with regulation, and that's what we need to do, is deregulate to the point where businesses can breathe. We have lots of agencies, like our child care, 30 pages of regulations 20 years ago, and now we have 140. And that's one agency. And then you have other agencies regulating the same kinds of regulations, but differently, right? So which one do you comply with? So we've got to make it easier for businesses. City of Spokane doesn't need to build bureaucracy to do that. We need to reduce it. So I'm holding this sign. It's really easy. I have a list over here. What we do is we sign wave. There's no reason for people in the community that are concerned to not be involved, because there's so many ways to do it. So sign waving is one. So I'll have this and the list in the back, so you can come sign wave if you like.
It's fun.
It is the funnest part, because nobody tells you about the problems with the city government and asks you questions. They just smile and wave back. And most of the time they're using all 5 fingers. So, right. And you get the thumbs up and you get the thumbs down. The thumbs down aren't so bad. Everybody's has a right to their opinion. My campaign is looking really good as far as support right now, but we do need some support to finish wrapping up the campaign. So there's this magic envelope here. It's got information on the inside so you can endorse. It also does another thing. It holds checks that are small and large. So know about that. So I was out sign waving. We've got doorbelling going on. That's why I look so horrible, because I'm pretty exhausted. But we have phone banking going on now at the Victory Center. So you can do that. So it's really easy. You go doorbelling in the afternoon. You go sign waving in the evening and during drive time, and then you go do phone banking, right? You can do that. Actually, that's what I'm going to do. But you can pick one of them, so it's really easy. So I've got cards for the contact to do sign waving, or to do doorbelling if you'd like. Saturday, we're going to have another doorbelling effort, and Sunday. So if you want to come join me and carry me across the street from place to place, I'd appreciate the help.
Well, and I understand that Shannon is rewarding the person that brings the most volunteers with them to doorbell, $25 food gift certificate of some sort, right?
Yes, I believe my wife is going to be, whoever brings the most amount of volunteers will get a gift card. So
you have to contact them, find out where to meet and the whole thing, but you can...
And if you become a donor and a volunteer, you can also be invited to the victory party that is obviously in a secret location. But we got to make sure it's a victory, so I need your help to do that. Any questions about stuff in Spokane? I'll start off with answering everything that Mike talked about. I will vote no. So just the whole, yeah, and it's... I don't even call it a laundry list anymore. It's a dirty laundry list, because it'll chase out investment. In fact, I'm terrified because my retirement is partially my property, and I planned on splitting it and creating 2 apartments there so that my kids can eventually pay rent, right? So it's, but yeah, so I want to split it up into a duplex because that's what they want, is density, and my wife and I thought we could do that, but I'm not sure that that's an environment that we're moving into that I'd want to risk my asset. Actually, I'm already seeing landlords selling off their properties. A lot of contractors won't even do business in the city of Spokane because of the regulation. I had a plumber friend of mine who retired early because he was sick of the regulation, but he didn't work in the city if he could help it. And he was working on a house in a housing area that split county and city lines. Identical houses, both had the same kind of a plumbing problem, and it was just because they're old houses and the things wore out. So in the one house, he was able to do it, I think it was like for $300, and then the neighbor across the street says, oh great, well I want to upgrade that at my house. And it went up to $700 just because the difference in regulation from county to city. So it's dramatic. Part of the reason for poverty in the city of Spokane is because of how much you pay to lease your house from the city government and the school district. So we need to mitigate those costs, and I don't think we need to raise taxes to provide the services. I think that we can take the slush funds out of other places. We have a sister city program where we actually pay for people to travel to other countries because we're global citizens. I don't really care about that. We've had a foreign exchange student come and live with us. It's not about not liking other foreign countries, but I, as a taxpayer, don't want to pay for bureaucrats and politicians to travel. They don't need to go to Chicago and bring back ideas, and they don't need to go to Japan to make friends either, in my personal opinion, unless they want to do it on their own dime. So.
Road diet and Crestline, and what could you pass on to the city council? What lessons learned for Monroe?
Well, I think the Crestline road diet, there's a lot less traffic than there is on Monroe. I was actually just sign waving on Crestline. That's the only time in the schedule we're going to sign wave on Crestline, and I'm kind of glad because most corners get lots of smiles and waves when people are on their way home from work because they're used to driving that corridor. Not so happy on Crestline. People are furious, and actually while I was there, I was talking to a gal that she's the engineer for the traffic lights, and she was trying to figure out how to run the traffic lights so that, you know, the city would stop getting so many complaints, right? And so it's impossible. It's backed up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks, and sometimes it looks like there's no end to the backup just because there's no space to get out. The residents are irritated about it, especially the ones that live on the road. It's increased people's commute times. I had a Facebook post on the Crestline Road Diet on my personal page that I didn't boost or anything like that, 71 shares. And a lot of comments, single moms that are upset because when they're late to pick up their kid from childcare, it's $1 a minute. Because you got to pay your staff. And, you know, child care is in crisis. The tax that he was talking about for child care, when we talk about getting people into the workforce, they need child care. And with the stuff that Washington State has done, by 2021, maybe by mid-2020, most of the child care commercial centers will be bankrupt if something doesn't change. And so black market child care is all that's going to be left, just because there's a point at which nobody will pay for the service. It's almost like city government at this point. It's so expensive, I don't want to pay for the service, right? So we've got to find a way to mitigate those costs so that we can have child care businesses and businesses of all sorts between, you know, child care and government workers, because government workers need child care too, right? So, well, we're going to have to find ways to mitigate those costs, and the only way we can do it is by finding efficiencies and being a city that's not like Seattle, being a city that's like Spokane, and telling Olympia that we can't tolerate their policies anymore, they're killing us. So right now we have a city council that's begging Olympia to make us all like Seattle, the whole state. And so I think that the city of Spokane, for its own salvation, I don't know how realistic the Liberty state is, but that might be the only thing that saves Spokane from becoming Detroit, in my personal opinion. So we need some fighters on the council to back up Mike, or maybe get in front of him a few times, and I plan to do that.
Gotta wrap this up real quick.
Yep, any quick questions? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't live here, so I live in Ponderay, but
Okay.
I want to stay in tune to what's happening. So you're running for a seat that is in the same place? as
Yeah.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have 3 districts in the city of Spokane. Each district has 2 council members. And he is trying to replace my seatmate who is termed out.
So he's position 1, I'm position 2. Or it will be position 2, right? With your help. Yes. Yep, Northeast Spokane. And the other thing with Northeast Spokane about creating jobs, and you watch expansion and people going out to Airway Heights and creating manufacturing jobs. Service industry jobs are great. We need them. We need childcare. We need retail. But the problem is that just trades money around. It doesn't help the economy. Manufacturing actually creates wealth. So Northeast Spokane has impact fees that are 4 times what they are downtown. Downtown, if you want to renovate a building and a business, it's like 86 cents per square foot, if I remember correctly, and it's almost $4 a square foot in Hilliard and in Dogtown. So they're killing us because you won't get the expansion, you won't get the people growing jobs because it's just not cost effective to locate there. And that's really insanity when we got the north-south freeway right there. It's called commerce and infrastructure. So if we don't get some changes on there, what we're going to end up with is a Detroit for the city of Spokane, and the freeway will just be a way to pass the crime by.
We really need these people. Laura, I'm so sorry, we're 5 after, and I don't know this library like I do.
The lights are going out, I can tell you that.
Exactly.
Looking through the
So,
window.
What I'm going to do, Phil Harris had a quick announcement. Thank you all for coming, and with a strong hand, as soon as Phil makes his announcement, be willing to put chairs into that room so we don't have to stay late. Phil, did you have an announcement?
You know, we've been cleaning out some stuff at home, and it's amazing the stuff that accumulates. But there's one thing I ran across, and I've had it a long, long time, I don't even know where I got it. But I know who I want to have it. Gloria. He can come up here with you if he wants.
Come on, Dan.
But this is something that, as soon as I saw it, I said, it's got to go to Gloria. Gloria was so supportive of me for so many years, and she's done so good for us that I just felt that Gloria can do what she wants.
Congratulations, very cool. Thank you, Phil.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Everyone, again, thank you so much. I hope you learned a lot. We need to get people to actually turn in their ballots, and we depend on you all to do that because I know you are going to be voting.
You can do that when you doorbell for Tim.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. And please help with chairs. Thank you.